Welcome, everyone. My name is Jess Posner. My pronouns are she and they, and I am the director of the Virtual Y at the YMCA of Central New York. I am a white woman in her mid-30s with brown asymmetrical hair, and I am wearing glasses and a navy blue shirt. The background behind me is a full bookshelf and some happy plants. I am honored to welcome you to today's virtual Lunch and Learn seminar, Budgeting Basics, Plans That Work for Your Lifestyle with Jillian Kerekes from the SECNY Federal Credit Union. Before I introduce our guest, I'd like to orient us to our virtual meeting platform, which is Zoom. I know many of you are probably experts at this point, but it doesn't hurt to revisit. Please keep your audio muted for the entire program unless you are invited to unmute. If you would like to communicate with me or ask questions, please use the chat function, which you can access on the bottom of your screen if you are joining on a computer, or in the 3 dots if you are joining via mobile or tablet. Following the presentation, there will be time for Q&A, so please do share those questions with us in the chat. It's also looking like we're going to be a relatively cozy group today, so we can also probably just unmute for conversation. We have enabled live transcription of the event. From a computer, you can turn this on by clicking Live Transcript. It's the CC icon at the bottom in the menu of your screen and selecting Show Subtitle. For mobile or tablet, you can access these settings by clicking the 3 dots. Finally, you will notice that today's event is being recorded. Only the speaker's video feeds will be included in any publicly shared version of this event, and we will edit out any names. We suggest viewing tonight's program in speaker view. From a computer, you can adjust this in the upper right-hand corner of the Zoom window by clicking View. From mobile or tablet, you should automatically be in speaker view, but you can swipe to change your views. You'll also notice that when our speaker begins screen sharing, you'll see their slides with the small image of the speaker. If you'd like, you can click and drag the light gray bar, which is located between those 2 windows, to the side. This will change the size of those windows in relationship to one another, so you can see our speaker's face a little bit bigger if you'd like. And finally, I just want to thank everyone for your generosity in creating beautiful community space of listening and learning this afternoon with our friends from SECNY. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our guest, who I'm going to spotlight for everybody. This is Jillian Kerekes, who is the Manager of Education Marketing of SECNY Federal Credit Union. SECNY FCU is a community credit union that offers membership to any person living, working, worshiping, attending school, business, and legal entities in Onondaga, Oswego, Madison, and Cayuga counties. We are so grateful to have you with us here today, Jillian, and really excited to hear more of the educational content, which I know is so important for SECNY to share with our communities. So without further ado, the virtual stage is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you all for choosing to attend on this, if you're in this area, generally lovely day. I'm going to begin screen sharing, and if you have questions at any point in time, or you're not seeing something, feel free to type it in the comments and Jess can share with me. Like she said, my name's Jillian. I will do another introduction. But hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn program from the YMCA and SECNY Federal Credit Union. So I have 3 parts to this program. You're welcome to stay for all 3. If you're only interested in the budgeting, I can take questions at the end of that as well. But this is on different ways to create and manage a budget and help you define a budget too. So the goal of this program is to help you figure out what might work for you and your family, whatever it looks like, versus what trends exist and what people are doing that you may have tried and struggled with, what you might see on TikTok, etc. Each individual and family and circumstance is unique, and there are a large number of options that exist out there in terms of different budget styles. So this is about your budget your way. Like Jess mentioned, I am from SECNY Federal Credit Union, serving everyone in Central New York. And we believe very strongly in education and making sure that people understand not just why they're utilizing the credit union, but what their money is doing for them. And we hope that, by being out there and being at the forefront of education in our communities, we are able to make a safer space for everyone to feel comfortable within their community. And for me personally, that was actually one of our members playing violin quickly. I know you couldn't hear it, but popped in my ears very loudly. So if I made a reaction, that is why. My name is Jillian Kerekes. As mentioned, I am actually right from the Syracuse area. I graduated from Corcoran much longer ago than I'm going to say here. I have 3 kiddos who are in the Syracuse City School District now. I am the Education Marketing Manager for SECNY Federal Credit Union. I am an avid reader, so feel free to share any book recommendations with me. And 2 of my passions are financial literacy and community service. I lead a Girl Scout troop. I'm active in the PTO and on some other boards. I am a YMCA member, so if you see me at the OCC gym or the FM gym, feel free to, say hi. So just talking a little bit about different budgets that exist, because you're going to see all of these different things out there as you are looking at, if you do a Google search for how to budget, you're going to see all of these different phrases. So let's address the fact that there are endless ways to budget. But can we even decide what that means if we don't start with what a budget actually is? And if you didn't really read all this or you don't feel caught up, these are just kind of catchphrases. These aren't things that are going to be important. We'll go over the things that are. But how do we actually know what to believe, and how do we know what works for our lives? So a budget itself is an estimate of income and expenditure for a set period of time. And the thing to think about with that is there is no one way to budget. There is not a fact of how you need to budget your money. It is not something that is going to be the same for everyone. A person living on their own with 2 cats may have a different way of budgeting than somebody who is living with a partner and 3 children who all need to be in daycare. That budget might look different, but not only might the budget look different, the way that they choose to spend their money might be different. It's really important that we don't set our values onto other folks, and that we allow them to create the budget that works best for their lifestyle. And that gives us the freedom to create the budget that works best for our lifestyle too. So it is not going to be the same for everyone, including all of us here. I know there's not a ton of us, but if you are looking at the name of somebody next to you, we don't know what their lifestyle is like, right? So we don't want to make any assumptions on how they might want to spend their money or what might be important for them. One thing that is important for a budget, though, is that it is time measured, because you do want to make sure that you are setting some sort of goals or limitations on your budget. And then you always want to first consider your needs when creating a budget. And we're going to go through these different things a lot further and what it looks like when we're actually budgeting it out. But just to remember, needs might shift person to person, family to family, household to household. You want to consider your life and your family when making a budget, but things that when we say needs are usually going to be considered needs would be your housing costs, your transportation costs. Syracuse and Onondaga County, plus the other counties we serve, are pretty heavily car driven counties. So for the most part, I realize people will be utilizing cars versus public transportation in their budgets, but maybe some folks are using public transportation. So you want to make sure that however you transport, that is going to be a need versus a want. Your insurance, your utilities, loan payments. And when we say loan, it's important to think about the fact that we are also counting credit cards as loans, because they are. We don't often think of them in that way. And the last part of this is about credit, but a credit card is basically a different type of loan than maybe a student loan, but it is still something that you have to pay every month, right? We have short to midterm savings goals, and those are things that pay towards the things that are your needs. So if you'll see here, like a roof, if you need to fix your roof, that isn't a want, that is an actual need, because it's going to go into your housing cost. Same with a down payment on a car. If you're unable to transport, then that might be something that goes into needs. Healthcare is going to be another one. And that is one of those costs that is going to be so low for some folks and extremely high for others. Okay, so in the very beginning slides, there were different methods of budgeting, and I'm going to go through some of them a little bit quickly that you will see the most before we actually look at a budget and kind of do one together. But the first one is the envelope method, because I feel like it's the one that gets the most attention on social media. So the envelope method is an all cash-based way of budgeting your money. So you are not utilizing credit unions or banks, even for your savings. You are utilizing actual envelopes, and each envelope is categorized with a different want or need. And you get to choose how you'd like to break those up. But you separate your money into each envelope each month. And that is exactly how much you are allowed to spend from that category. So if your rent or mortgage is, I'm going to use a really round number here, $1,000, you put your $1,000 into the envelope, and that is what you spend. Now, most mortgages are not going to take cash, so that would be a place where maybe you have to go to the bank and deposit and withdraw. But for most of these things, you're going to specifically utilize cash. That is where you see very little flexibility, because if your grocery budget on the envelope method, if you give yourself $250 each month for your groceries and you run out within the envelope method, that's it. You are done. So unless you're setting an envelope aside that has a little extra, you can call it your potential space envelope, you can call it your extras envelope, then basically you have to adjust for the next month and realize that the amount that you chose was not an appropriate amount for the previous month. One thing with this is it does have a long learning curve. So if this is the choice that you make for your budgeting, it is something that is really not going to be immediately effective with the first month. Because again, if you realize 250 isn't enough and you don't have extra money, then it's not like you're not going to buy groceries. You're either going to choose to charge them or you're going to pull from another envelope. So it takes about 6 months for this to be something that you can actually learn to use. It is really great for developing discipline. So this does force you to work within your cash, which is something that I don't know that we do on a regular basis. I can't make assumptions for everyone else, but I know I've had debit and credit cards basically since I've had a bank account, and checks. Those were still a thing. And another thing to think about this is as you're saving, your money is not earning for you. You are not receiving interest when you keep your cash in an envelope in your house. And it can feel less secure. I don't know about you, but I personally don't feel comfortable having that amount of cash within my house just kind of sitting there at any given point in time. But that can be different for different people. One thing that is great about the envelope method, besides the fact that it helps you develop discipline, is that there are many resources available because it is very trendy right now. Part of another name that you've probably heard is Dave Ramsey, and a part of their method is kind of this method. So a lot of the things that are on trend or that will be recommended to you are based on this envelope method. Moving next is the bare bones budget. So if you're here, you might be here because you are in a moment of crisis. Your bare bones budget is that moment of crisis. It is an intense goal mode. You are only spending on the necessities that you require to live. So basically those wants are the only things that you are putting your money aside on. And then your groceries, you are either keeping, cutting, or lowering. It is the way to basically pull yourself out of a very tough moment. And I can send you more information on this if this is where you would like, if you would like to learn more about this, because it is very intense and it's not designed to be used for more than about 6 months, because it is not going to provide any extra for anyone. But if you find yourself in a place where you feel like you're so overwhelmed, we are going to talk about cutting back on debt after we go over the different budgets. But if you find yourself in a place where you're feeling so overwhelmed, this bare bone budget is, one, difficult to say, but two, a great way to kind of get yourself out of that feeling, and move into something where you feel that you are surviving. It at least shows you the things that you need to survive, which sometimes, in a society that favors spending and favors things, just resetting yourself to realize the stuff that you need and what that looks like can be a healthy thing too. Okay, and then these are two other ones that you might hear about quite a bit. One is the no budget, and the other one is the zero budget. So the no budget budget is an easy way to limit your spending by automating your expenses and saving targets. In a way, it's similar to the envelope method, except that your envelopes exist within your bank account. So anything that you pay you basically set everything up for automatic payment. And then whatever is left is your spending money, and that automatic payment includes your savings. And this is great to work with the 50-30-20, which is what we're going to utilize when we go through our actual budget in a few moments. But the premise is when all your saving and investing is taken care of, that you as the consumer can spend in line with your checkbook balance and no more. If you're really going this method, you may have a separate debit card that you prepay for your groceries, because that is something where you might not have a separate account, but most credit unions and banks will give you the option to have it a vacation account, a Christmas account, and you can rename them things in your e-banking. So your vacation account may actually be your vacation account, but your Christmas account could be your grocery money, or that could be your entertainment fund, and have all of your for entertainment, that's a pretty vast thing. So if you used, your Christmas fund as your entertainment fund and had a separate account for that, you could have your internet, your cable, all of your Netflix, Hulu, all of those different things come from that. So you specifically set aside a prepay from that account for all of those things. And you would actually set up your direct deposit right from your work, if that is something that you have, to go into those different accounts in that way. So you are budgeting ahead of time. For me, because I do prefer to do things online, this is something that I don't do it quite as exact. Like I don't set aside my grocery budget in a separate account, but this sort of budget works best for me, where I just automate everything, and at the end I see what I have. It's super important that you automate your savings too. And then our zero budget. This is really great for overspenders and then people who are meticulously planning. So it makes monitoring your spending super clear. So you basically just take your monthly income and you use every single dollar in a deliberate way. So like saving a certain amount for a trip, paying your utilities and groceries until there is exactly $0 left. You can use this with the envelope system. But if you don't use strictly cash, as with the envelope system, you just log each expense to make sure you're on budget. And there are a lot of apps, which I'm going to go through, that help you follow a zero-based budget. So it sounds crazy, sort of, when you think about it, right? That your goal is to end with zero. But in a way, it's allowing you to really see what you get paid and how you're spending your money. So this would be one where in the envelope method, you might have a coffee envelope. And into that might be not only your trips to Salt City Coffee Market, but it might also be your bags of coffee that you buy. So this one would possibly just put that into food, but it would be the same sort of thing, or entertainment, depending on, how I use Salt City as an office every so often. So that is definitely part of my budget. But you think about the different things that are important to you, and basically you break them down in a way so that you end up with nothing at the end. And that includes your savings. So you do start with your needs, then you go to your wants, and then the rest is kind of your extras. And it does allow you to see where you are spending your money. So we're also going to talk a little bit about utilizing tech to make the most of your money. Again, if you want to utilize cash and do the envelope method, it is there are so many resources out there. There are binders that you can purchase specifically with the categories created already, and you can put your money in them. If you are a cash person, you might also be a crafty person. I find the two go together really well. And, you can use your Cricut to cut out the different pieces and make really cute envelopes so it feels fun when you're doing it each month. Budgeting doesn't have to be boring. But there's also a ton of technology that's going to help you make the most of your finances. So these are some of the apps, and anyone who is interested in, I have so many links and apps. You can either, I will put my email at the end. You can send me an email and I will send you copies of any of these slides so that you can check out the different things. Like I said, we're going to walk through an actual budget planning using a bonsai program that we have at SECNY, and I will send you the link for that as well. It is free. So the overall best in everything that I've read in research for budgeting is Mint, but there are different ones specifically for the type of personality that you might have and the type of budget that you would like to do. So if you are not me and you are a type A personality, you need a budget is very detailed, and it does not leave space for creativity. I am the type of person, I'm a big picture person. Creativity is the way that I think. This stressed me out immediately, but I have a friend where I was like, this is perfect for you. It is just straight, no extra notes, and it will get you there in a neat and very organized manner. If you are working with another person, Good Budget was really great, and allowed couples to share their information. Sorry, did anyone lose me for a second, or am I still there with everybody? Okay, beautiful. Good Budget allowed everyone to share their information, so it wasn't just you can actually work with a partner. It says couples, but I mean, we live in a modern world. So the person with whom you live may not necessarily be the person with whom you're coupled. This would be great for roommates as well, but it is really great for people who consider themselves partners. And then if you are an investor, Personal Capital puts a lot of your ability to invest in how different markets are doing within your actual budgeting. So this is a great one for those folks who are interested in taking to that next level. If you participate in a credit union, and a lot of banks and credit cards will give you this too, and that is basically your free credit score, and it will right through your online banking, you're going to be able to access your credit score. You're going to be able to get warnings on anything that pops up. So if you lose track of something, or if you are a person who has maybe not the credit score that they would like at this exact moment, and part of your budget includes bringing down your overall credit usage so that you can increase your credit score, then being involved in a program like this, this is the SECNY page, is a really great way to know where you stand, but also receive alerts. And there's nothing more rewarding than that feeling of positive feedback that you get when you realize that, you've been budgeting for 6 months and your credit score has gone up 30 points because you're actually putting more money than the minimum to your payments each month, and you're bringing down your overall ratio of used credit. So what can you do with your bank or credit union? I highly recommend credit unions because they are nonprofits, and they're really about making sure that you feel comfortable with your money. But, wherever you are, know that you have trusted rates, you can have good service. And then if you go in there and say, like, if you make an appointment and you say, like, this is how I would like to budget, what can you help me do with the accounts? They're going to be able to help you and figure out a way that actually the envelope method and turning that into an electronic program was something I came up with the manager of our Onondaga Hill branch. We were both like, this is such a trendy, cool thing, but I don't want cash sitting in my apartment or my house. And we were like, oh, we could take all the different, vacation, Christmas accounts, those things that people don't necessarily use anymore. And those could be your envelopes. It doesn't cost more to have those accounts as long as you're keeping some small amount of money in them. And it gives you that same ability to sort your money in a really specific way without having it sitting right there in front of you at your house, where anyone could access it at any time. Especially if you bring it in the car with you. To me, like, the house is probably okay, but I don't know, cars get broken into all the time, and it just makes. So here are different budgeting activities, and I can send any of these with you, but I'm going to show you right now our interactive budget calculator. So is everyone now seeing the budget calculator? Can you give me a thumbs up, Jess? Okay, great, thank you. So I will send you folks the link for this, but we are going to basically create a budget really quickly. I'm going to use a double income average family budget, which is, now we live in New York, it tends to be a little bit higher, but the national average for a family is $4,475 take home each month. That could be a little more than what you make as a single person. It could be significantly more than you make. Like I said, everybody's budget is going to be very different. So we're going to say that maybe they do some crafting and bring in an extra 250, but basically this is our budget. And we're going to say that this family has some kids. So this is going to walk you through each step, and it's going to ask you about all of your different expenses. So you can all go through this for free, and you will see that it's going to look at the zero-based budget, but we're going to use the 50, 30, 20 in combinations with that. So with that, your needs are going to take up about 50% of your budget. Right now, if you are in the housing market, house or apartment, you may be in a place where your needs are taking up more than 50% because houses are expensive right now. And then you might need to shift. Your wants are going to be 30% and your savings are going to be 20%. This is not going to be perfect for everyone, but something in this general guideline is a really great place to be. And if you find that you were using, when I first did this, I found that I was at 68% of my needs for my budget. And I was like, wow, I am overpaying on a lot of things. And it allowed me to take a step back and realize, like, what am I doing incorrectly? So as you go through this, I spend a ton of money in gas. I drive so frequently and gas is so expensive right now. So it's a matter of making that adjustment. But I couldn't. So I was like, how much do I spend on food? Can I cut back on that? And your needs and wants are going to be different. So this will take you through each step of that. But to go through the 50-30 a bit more. So I'm going to go, if both partners in a household are making $3,000 a month taking home, your monthly after-tax income, $6,000 a month, this is where you would look for your 50-30-20. I don't know about you, but I am not currently saving $1,200 a month. And many of us don't start with that spot. They might adjust their, they're going to do their needs first, but then you move immediately into wants and then savings with your 20%. If you're not exactly in this division yet, it is okay. There's another tool that is in that list, and that is our budget calculator. So within that, you can actually put your monthly after-tax income and then put all of your expenses plus your annual expenses, and it will give you what you could potentially save per year based on what you're doing right now. And this is I think this is an excellent way, after you've gone through that list and it breaks down to you what your budget might look like, that is very interactive and personal, for you to look and see what your actual annual savings and life could look like. So this monthly take home, somebody is making about $50,000 a year. And if you can look at all the costs, these are pretty standard in Central New York. I pulled them all from averages that exist. Internet, I included cable in there. Your car payment at $350, your phone at $275 in case you are covering for a family, rent and mortgage around $1,100, and your food at $400, which means you're doing much better than I am with my 3 kids. Entertainment $110. And I made these pretty expensive, but medical costs at $5,000 a year, gifts at $3,000 a year, emergency costs at $3,000 a year, and vacation at $3,000 a year. With that, all of those things, you're still able to save about $500 a month. And that is not maybe as high as you'd like for it to be. However, it is a really excellent starting point. And if you can find yourself even $200 a month right now to begin savings as you go through your budget and you realize, oh, hey, I'm spending significantly more in this entertainment category than I need to, and I'd really like to shift more to savings, it is a great way to break that down. So Crystal, gas is so tough right now. I just saw your comment. I spend so much of my budget on gas, so I am there with you. Okay, does anyone have any questions about the interactive budget guides? Okay, so the next part is just a quick conversation about getting out of debt. And I think most Americans have some kind of debt, whether it just be your mortgage or your car, but take comfort, you're not alone. Millions in the United States have faced and overcome their debt, but it doesn't happen by accident. So we're going to go over some of the strategies to get out of debt and onto the path to financial wellness. And I will go through this quickly so we have some time to go over questions. So these are just the different things that we're going to review. So really the most important thing when you're trying to get out of a debt is stop accumulating more debt, which sounds simplistic, but is really difficult because if we are used to putting things onto a credit card, you might even have auto payments on your credit cards that exist for certain bills, then it is challenging to stop accumulating more debt. But you don't want to keep moving that goalpost. So stopping your use of credit cards will likely be the quickest way to do this, or moving everything. If you have like one credit card with a low interest rate, that might be your strategy, and especially if you can shift things to that. Number two, reduce your overall expenses. So this is where you're going to look at that budget that you've created, and you're going to find areas where you can save, even if it's just a little, and make those changes. It might mean cutting down on eating out, canceling subscriptions, or any number of reductions that can add up. Even month to month. So like I love RuPaul's Drag Race. So when All Stars is not on, maybe I don't subscribe to Paramount Plus. But maybe when it is, I do, because for me, that is like my release show, right? So, but I don't need it year round. Same with HBO. I know with Game of Thrones, so many people, when it ended, canceled their HBO subscription. So if you aren't watching a thing on a streaming service, you don't need that streaming service at that time period. Cancel it until you need it again. Maybe allow yourself one at a time. Watch the show that you'd like to watch and then pick up a new one. It doesn't sound like a ton, but if you're cutting out Hulu, Disney Plus, and HBO, you're saving about $57 a month by just eliminating the 3 and allowing yourself that one. So I always allow myself 2 streaming services, and then that is it. And then I have Apple TV, so that is included. And then pay more than the minimum. Once you have some extra money in your budget, add that towards your monthly payment. So this would be a place where maybe you're not ready to save yet. You want to give yourself some money to save, but if you have a lot of debt, you're going to be using your extra money to pay down your debt before you're increasing your savings. That doesn't mean you shouldn't save some money, but maybe instead of 20, you're going to use 10% to pay towards all of your debt, and 10% is going into savings. You do still want to give yourself some savings in case of an emergency. Otherwise, you're just going to put that back onto a credit card. And you also want to plan. These steps can help you get ahead of your debt and maintain control moving forward, but they may not be enough to get you out of debt on their own. So we're going to go through a couple of different strategies pretty quickly. And again, if you're familiar with a lot of the trendy things, the snowball method is one of the most popular. And with this one, you focus on paying off your smallest debt first by adding extra to that payment. And then you continue to pay the minimum on all of your other debts. And then once you've taken care of this one, you add the amount that you were paying on this to the next debt. And then add that to your payment for the next smallest, and so on and so forth until everything is paid off. So if you think of it like you've got the small snowball at the top of the hill, and think of it like a Looney Tunes snowball. So as you push it, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger as it goes down, right? I tried that in real life and I was like, it's not as impressive as it is on television, but it still works. And then there's the debt avalanche method. So this is similar, except you're focusing on your interest rate versus the amount. So just like an avalanche, you knock out the big things first, and then you work your way down with the strategy. So you're going to focus on your debt with the highest interest rate while still paying your minimums on everything else, then roll those funds into the next highest, and so on and so forth. So this helps those big interest rates stop adding to your overall debt. Is one better than the other? Not necessarily. I focus on interest rate, but you can do what is working best for you. Some folks feel very intimidated by a number. And if that is where you are, then I would focus on that large one that makes you feel uncomfortable when you open that bill each month. And then what will they look like for you? The best thing to do is actually apply them. So I have a website you can go to so you can kind of plug things in. But you may actually need some outside help for these. So one thing you can actually do is negotiate with your creditors. If you can't afford these minimum payments, even after you remove as much from your budget as possible, you can actually call your creditors to make adjustments to help you in your situation. If you want to take this approach, you will want some preparation. Call as soon as you're possible, call as soon as you're ready, and have all of your information in front of you so that you can kind of explain the situation. Some certain things you might want to ask about is lowering your minimum payment, decreasing your interest rate, or waiving late fees. Before agreeing to any changes, also make sure you understand the repercussions, because this could impact your credit score. You might be having this debt longer. You might pay more in overall interest, but it could also be worth it if you're actually in a place where you don't feel like you're drowning. And most of these companies do not want you to drown. They want you to pay them back, and they are willing to work with you. You can also work with a nonprofit like a credit union or a credit counseling agency to help you pay off your debts. Your counselor can negotiate and handle things with your lenders. That would be with a credit counseling agency, and they'll help you get a lower interest rate or waive fees. Now, one thing to be careful though is there are a lot of predatory organizations that will say that they're a debt management plan, but at the end of the day, they are actually a credit card company with a very high interest rate and a goal of you moving all of your debt to them, and either then basically drowning you with a 25 to 35 to 50% interest rate, depending on where you live. New York State doesn't have this quite as bad, but there are places where you can find these things. That 35 could exist here. Or being in a place where they give you a paycheck loan, which is another thing that is sort of a predatory way for you to consolidate your debt that will end up costing you more in the long run. So make sure the place that you are working with is a nonprofit and is a place that you can actually trust. And if you have a question, you can email us, and I can't give you like the official advice, but I can certainly talk you through this sort of a thing, or set you up with somebody here who can help you figure out the best ways to work with things. And then there's also debt consolidation. So this is where you really need to be careful that you could end up being in debt longer and paying more interest, and also dealing with predatory organizations. So these are your different strategies: snowball, avalanche, negotiating, debt management, and debt consolidation. And remember, any of these fees count towards your needs. They're not your wants. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel great because you're putting money to something, and sometimes it doesn't even feel like we're paying it off. It just feels like you're putting money towards a thing to have to put money towards a thing again. But if you choose a strategy and you work within your budget, you're going to be able to find yourself in this financial place where you are getting yourself free. And if you have online banking through your credit union or bank, and you can see that credit score and see those positive impacts from the work that you're doing, it really feels worth it. And again, I have more resources that I can send to you. And you are, of course, able to ask any questions. And I will put my email in the chat. I do also have some stuff on credit. We won't go through all of this, but I do just want to go through each of these terms, just in case we have some real novices here, which totally is cool. You never have to feel badly about not knowing a thing, and you can always ask a question. So you go into your bank or credit union and you are not sure of a thing that they are talking to you, stop them and ask. People like to explain what they do, and you're giving somebody opportunity to explain what they do. At the end of the day, it makes people feel good, and they want to be able to help you. So interest rates. That's the percentage of principal that must be paid on top of returning the original amount borrowed. And this will show up on your bills as APR, which is annual percentage rate. There are two common types of interest. There's simple interest, and that just builds on the principal. And then compound interest will build on the total principal and the interest, meaning that you are paying interest on the interest too. Your term is going to be the amount of time until all the principal and the interest needs to be repaid. Your minimum payment is the lowest amount you'll have to pay towards the debt each month. So paying your debt off as quickly as possible is the best way to save on interest and make borrowing the most affordable. And just a quick note about credit scores. They actually go between 300 and 850. I've never met anyone who has 850. I know someone who had 840. That is the highest someone's ever told me that they had. I also have a debt payoff calculator from that previous screen that you can actually use, and we'll show you the different impacts your credit score might have by paying certain debts. So things that might negatively impact your credit score are missed payments, credit utilization, asking for too many loans or credit cards closely together, or having a loan in collections. One thing that might not go along, so if you're applying for a mortgage, it's okay. You just want to make sure you apply for all the different mortgages at the same time. Having those hard credit inquiries within the same 5 days shows that you're just shopping for different rates. But if you are asking for credit over 6 months and you have, a bunch of different inquiries, that's going to come up as more of a negative. When they see it within a small period of time, then it can be explained, which might sound counterintuitive, but you just tell, it shows that you are looking, it was a mortgage company and they pulled a hard credit in a certain period of time. Same thing if you're car shopping. You just want to make sure that you're doing that. And with cars, a lot of times they'll just do a soft pull, which means it doesn't show up on your credit report. But when they do a hard pull on your credit, as long as you're shopping for the same thing, you have a few days where the one pull can kind of be covered, or your multiple pulls can be covered by the one purchase. So anything over 680 is considered a pretty good score, and that will allow you to qualify for more money and lower rates. And anything under 579 is considered kind of a poor score. 620 is that one, like kind of in the middle, 620 to 680. Things that are good for your credit would be making your payments on time, the age of your credit history, the number of accounts that you have, and the amount of credit you're actually utilizing if it's lower. And then just remember, loans can be typically large sums of money, but it can also be a $500 credit card. The most common loans are auto, mortgage, student loans, and personal loans. And you usually get them from financial institutions. And just be careful of places that promote those quick loans with no or bad credit, payday loans, advanced loans. And there are some loans that have interest rates up to 600%, meaning you're paying up to 6 times what they allow you, even more, because it could be compounded. This makes them super expensive. They can hurt your credit score. So before you apply for anything, the best places to go are your trusted financial institutions. And then credit cards, you can borrow and pay back the money as much as you need to. So that is more of a rotating debt. And there are so many benefits to using credit, but there are also many risks as well. Interest can be very expensive, and it can cause a decrease in your credit score. That can be dangerous, but it also allows you to make purchases and receive rewards. If you pay your credit cards back each month, there's actually positive uses for them. So you just want to make sure you always research the terms, ask questions, don't borrow more than what you're comfortable paying off. So make sure you put it into your budget if you're going to consider taking out a loan. You want to pay on time and pay more than the minimum. Even just $5 more, if that's what you can afford, will help you get out of debt faster. But putting as much towards it as you can, using one of the methods that we talked about, can really help you not fall into any of the traps. So that is the end. And I will take any questions if anyone has them.
Thank you so much, Jillian, for that super informative, friendly, and totally easy to digest, presentation on basics of budgeting. It was really informative. I've definitely got some questions, but I see that Crystal has raised her hand. Crystal, do you want to just come off mute and have a little conversation?
Yeah, I have one question. So earlier you talked about setting up different accounts within your account to save for holidays and stuff like that. And I remember doing that when I was younger, but the credit union did it for me. Is there a way to do it ourselves, or does the credit union have to do it for us?
No, well, I mean, you may have to go in to open the new account, but if you're already a member, it's basically just the same as adding to your checking account and adding a savings account. So you could do it electronically using whatever electronic banking they use. Like for us, it's Chow, and adding that account to your accounts, or so straight from their website, or you can give them a call and do that too. And then if you're deciding to have direct deposit go to those, you just do that right through your employer.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's one of the most underutilized things. Like, I mean, my grandmother always had a Christmas account, right? And it just wasn't something that I thought about until we were trying to think of good ways to use the envelope method that didn't seem unsafe. We were like, oh, there's all these accounts that exist, like vacation funds, Christmas funds. We just don't use them. So
Yeah, it's really smart.
Thanks so much for that really good question, Crystal. If anyone else has a question, feel free to raise your hand or type it out in the chat, and I'd be happy to read it off to Jillian. I have a couple questions though. So you were just talking about loans, and I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about like when it might be a good idea to take out a loan.
yeah, so I mean, it sort of depends on the person, right? So one place that I think it could be a good strategy for a person is if they have a ton of rotating debts. So that would be like if you have a number of different credit cards at varying high interest rates, and your credit score is good enough to qualify you for a loan with a lower interest rate, you might then consider taking out a loan to pay off those credit cards. But the thing is, you're going to make two choices there, right? You're either going to close those credit cards so that you don't have access to them in the future, which will cause a negative impact on your credit score, like in the immediate future. So if you're about to buy a house or a car, that might not be your best option. Or two, you are going to freeze those credit cards and remove them from your electronic account, because it is very easy then to take out that loan, but still have the habit of utilizing those cards. So that could be a good place to take out a loan. I partner with Onondaga Community College on a ways to pay for college program, and like what it looks like as an adult student or a traditionally aged student. And that might be a place, because student loans, you might not be in a place where you want to take out a full-on student loan. You might not, maybe you've already done, like for me, I have my degree, but I wanted to learn some coding. So I took a class at Onondaga Community College for coding, and I took out a loan, and it was a credit card with a 0% interest rate. And that was my education card. So any purchases I made for education, I put directly on that card specifically, so I could track what I was spending on my educational costs. So that's another place where a loan might be a good idea. Even with student loans, if your educational costs aren't too high, sometimes taking out a traditional loan is that you're paying while you're taking classes is a better and less expensive option than taking out traditional student loans. And if you are a parent with college, soon to be college age students, they take out these loans in their names. A lot of times they receive the money at the beginning of the semester, and they will receive however much they're qualified for, regardless of how much it costs for them to go to school. And they receive a lot of extra money, but that all has to be paid back in the long run too. So just another thing to keep in mind as you're looking at those. If you need to buy a car, I would highly recommend taking out an auto loan if you don't have the cash to buy a car. But in general, auto loans tend to be right now, cars are more expensive than normal, but an auto loan tends to be a lower interest loan if you have a credit score even above 620. And we have a first-time auto buyer program too that takes folks with almost no credit and helps them be able to purchase a car loan. But that is a lower risk loan, and another place where I think it's a decent choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Crystal, I see your hand raised again.
Yeah, so that spiked another question. So my kids are young, they're 4 and 6, but I'm curious what the best option is to help them establish credit when they're older. I did not have great financial role models to look up to, so I had zero credit. And it took me a long time to establish it. And I don't want that for my kids. I want to be able to teach them early. So how would I do that as early as possible, but financially responsibly, I guess?
Yeah, excellent question. So the first thing I would recommend is that they have their own bank accounts. So I'm going to speak from what I know, which is the SECNY, and also that I have 3 children very close in age to your kiddos. Mine are 5, 7, and 9. And we have Money Mammals accounts for kids 12 and under. So they receive incentives for putting in deposits. They receive a card on their birthday with a $5 deposit incentive, but also they receive little punch cards. And when they make deposits, they get stamps and they can earn prizes. So it allows them to see that there's some benefit in putting money aside. And then at 13, through you, they're able to start learning about debit and different ways that they can manage their money. Plus that like the Bonsai program that I utilize, we have a lot of online interactive programs, and every credit union will, that they can sort of play with. There's ones where you can collect points and you can actually use them on gift cards and things like that, so that they can interact with different things. But I would say at that age, what I use with the Money Mammals is that it's kind of the 50, 30, 20, but it's spend, save, and donate. And we understand like kids don't really understand what saving money is. So we use save as purchase. If you want them to like save money, you can have them do that. And I would recommend taking it into the credit union with their account, but you can have them put their money in different jars and choose, if they receive $5, and maybe they put $1 in donate, $1 in save, and the rest is their spend, but they have to set like a little spending goal. So maybe it's a book that they like. My daughter loves the graphic Babysitters Club novels. So, and because we're a book family, I'll pay for half, but then she has to come up with half. So that could be like her spend money. So she tracks how much she has until she has enough. And then, we can go to Parthenon Books or whatever, and she can purchase the book that half of the book that she wants, and I will buy the other half. So, and then in terms of credit worthiness, once they're 13 to 18, they can have those tools with your support. So we have our Save to Earn and Save to Learn accounts, and they allow for a debit card that you are signed on to. So they're starting to learn that electronic money. You can give them some access to electronic banking too. And then if they're interested in a car, they can go through the first time auto buyer program, where they have to actually take some classes on what it looks like to have the auto loan before they're approved, but they don't have to have a credit history to do it. So, they're seeing what it looks like to make the payments. They're seeing what it looks like to do those things interactively online, and then they get approved and they can actually purchase a car. And we work with a ton of different dealerships. And if you don't bank through us, then I'm sure the place that you do also has similar programs. So that's something where you could go in there and chat with them about what would work best.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I do an allowance program if you ever see it. I do it at a bunch of libraries. Feel free to hop in, and the college program. New York has like the 529 accounts, but if your child decides not to go to college, you can't utilize those. So there's like other things that you can put money into that can give you the same sort of a thing. They are transferable though. So since you have more than one kid, it would probably be fine. But yeah, there's a lot of options out there that exist. And I did not have strong financial and I mean, yeah, my role models were not there. So, it's a lot of learning, and sometimes it's failing too, but I think that's a good lesson as well.
Well, thank you so much, Crystal, and also Jillian. I have another question, which is when you're kind of like looking at your 50, 30, 20, obviously, which, because things have become, inflation is so high and things have become so expensive right now, I'm myself and also a lot of people I know are moving more towards a bare bones budget, because that 30, 20 of wants and savings are just kind of evaporating, into the pockets of people who are profiting off of it, right? So my question is specifically around like, how do you kind of how do you calculate, for example, knowing that we need to put money into retirement or health insurance deductions, like, those may come out pre-tax. So when you're looking at your calculations, do you include those, or like how do you budget if you have things, if you are lucky enough to have an employer like the Y where you can put those things in pre-tax? How do you kind of figure that out or budget it with what you have, especially considering that we know that our dollars are just not going as far as they once did?
That is a really great question. So one, if you're already enrolled in those programs, oh, Crystal, it was great. Thank you for your support and gas costs. I'm right there with you. Have a great rest of your day. So if you're already enrolled with those programs and you find that you have less money, but you are still doing those things and it's not hurting you, I would keep them where they are, and you only use your budget on the money that you physically take home. So like, don't budget your, only budget the money that you are actually seeing come from your paycheck. However, if you are within a time frame where those things can be adjusted, and for most companies it is only a couple months out of the year, and you do find that you're not comfortable within your budget, I would then redo your budget calculator and add those items into your take-home pay and see how much you can contribute. But if you can afford to not take more money out of your retirement, and you can afford to not, whole other speech, but if you have a health savings account and you're using that instead of insurance, which for a lot of folks is probably a better idea, I can't give I can't give that formal advice, but if you find that you're not spending a ton of money, if you're spending thousands of dollars a year on insurance, and you can be spending thousands of dollars a year in your HSA, might be a better option. But it is something where you're probably not going to want to adjust that too much unless you really feel it's draining you. So if you're in the time where you can make those shifts in your contributions, then I would put that into your budget and see how you can work it out. Otherwise, don't count them at all. That is money. Pretend it's like your taxes. You're paying your taxes, so you're not counting that in your budget.
Okay, that's good advice. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. It was a great question. Thank you for asking it.
Of course. Any final questions from anybody still on the call?
And my email is in the chat. So if you are interested in any of the interactive websites or anything like that, I can just email them right over to you.
That would be great. And, and following up too, if you don't mind sharing your slide deck, if it's okay to share it, I can send it to all the folks who registered so that they can have access to that. And we'll also send out the full recording to anyone that registered. So we'll have that as well. So I just wanted to, from the YMCA of Central New York, I just really wanted to thank you, Jillian, for sharing all of your wisdom with us. There's clearly such an abundance of resources for how to begin learning to manage money, build budgets for people really of all ages. So I see that we've got a lot of gratitude coming through in the chat. And I just wanted to ask you, Jillian, if there are any final thoughts or words you'd love to leave us with today.
Yeah. So, just like the rest of our lives, right? Don't look at the person next to you and feel like you have to compete with them, because at the end of the day, the only person accountable for your life is you, right? So the budget you make has to reflect your values and reflect your needs, your wants. So if your neighbor just bought a boat and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do that. Oh, now I need to get a boat. No, right? Your life is yours and you are the person accountable to it. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at systems and ask why they work the way they do, but it does mean that you are not competing against anyone in this financial realm in a way that should make you feel any sort of jealousy or threat inside, right? So wake up and do what's best for you and your family and the people with whom you live, and try not to worry about what you're trying to be sold on Instagram and what your neighbor is doing, because the world will want you to do those things, but it's not going to necessarily be great for you to do them.
That is such great advice, not only when it comes to finances, but I think so many different things, but also everything is money, right? So I think that that's such great advice that I also think probably will trickle into other avenues of life as well, if you can really ground yourself in that wisdom.
Yeah, and it's hard, right? Like, it is counterintuitive to everything that's put in front of us. But if we look at money as a tool and something that we work for and something that works for us, then we can do a better job making sure that we are accountable to the choices that we make and not to the choices that companies want us to make necessarily. So.
Well, thank you so much. This was really so, it was so informative. I'm even going to say like a little entertaining. It was really enjoyable to listen and to receive the information from you. So thank you for sharing your passion for financial literacy and education and for being a friend of the Y.
Yeah, thank you all so much for everything you do. And thank you all for attending.
All right. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everybody.